Welcome to Grid Line Wrap Up. Kobe, John, and our colleague Ben Schneider. We invite you to participate in the chat room, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. Link in the video description below to keep us on the air. We have a lot of racing, so let's get to it. Kobe, IndyCar was a wet and wild race on the IMS road course yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, yesterday the NTT IndyCar Series GMR Grand Prix at the IMS road course was really wet and wild. For the first time, the winner came from outside the top 10. The winner was Colton Herta, who started 14th. After the first lap, Herta made a pit stop for slick tires, undercutting everyone. However, before he got around Paddle Award, he made an epic save that's been trending all over the internet for the past 24 hours. He was fast all race long in both dry and wet track conditions. He said it was one of the hardest races he's had to win so far in his young career. And we know Colton Herta is very talented at 22 years old. Was his performance and win a major statement, not only leading up to the granddaddy of them all, the Indianapolis 500, the IndyCar Championship, but also justifying the hype for him to be a future Formula One driver.
Yeah, absolutely. Colton Herta has totally lived up to the hype. I think we've all realized that over the course of the last several years. There's a reason why he's being touted for a Formula One drive and is an F1 prospect, not just with the Andretti Global team, which I have to say it's frustrating to see that they have not gotten the full approval that they deserve, particularly from one Toto Wolff. I think certainly Mene Andretti would absolutely have a lot of things that they could add to the sport, considering the last name is synonymous with speed and Mario himself is a world champion. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Necessarily, we're here to talk about Colton himself and why he's in that position as a shoe-in for one of the Andretti Global seats if the team does end up being granted the license to race in Formula One. You see on the screen there, his winning percentage is absolutely phenomenal at only 22 years old to be driving as well as he is. His outlap in particular, a couple of the saves that he made in the conditions yesterday were absolutely incredible. With everything being thrown his way, the kid still found a way to come through and win the race in dominating fashion and absolutely has silenced any critics he might have had still remaining. There's a reason why McLaren are interested in him now as well. I think he absolutely, we see a day in the life commenting there. Good to see you. I've recognized you from the Encore show a couple times, so thanks for being here tonight. But you're absolutely right. McLaren have picked him up as well, and I think there's certainly a path for him in Formula One with either team. Hopefully the Andretti Global deal ends up being able to go through. I hope Josh, I think, has some better connections than I have in that regard, so maybe he can give us an update on that when he speaks here in a couple seconds. But, Colton is just phenomenal, and the hype is absolutely deserved because he absolutely showed why the hype is there with what he did yesterday.
Absolutely, and the McLaren deal as well, with new Formula E coming in as well, is that's been the big one this weekend, which really sort of surprised everybody. We knew that Formula E and Mercedes were already separating as a partnership. We didn't know which team was coming in. We thought McLaren was coming in as a separate entity, so it was a big surprise to see them replacing Mercedes directly. There's been a lot of rumours that it's going to kick off the Formula One move around, as you were talking about. The rumour is that we're going to have Rosenquist going to Formula E alongside Danny Ricciardo. That's the rumour that I was also been told this weekend by journalists at the track as well from Berlin. And Colton Herta is going to replace Ricciardo at McLaren and leaves a seat open perfectly in the IndyCar situation as well, because they're very keen to keep Lando Norris. Danny Ricciardo isn't so happy there at the moment as well. And considering that, I know we were all hearing it before, for me to be told it by 3 different Formula E journalists as well, and one of them is now left the Formula E. This was their last race today as well, and had no reason to keep any secrets as well. It's a very interesting prospect that it's Formula E that is being the big driver market in both Formula One and in IndyCar. First of all, apologies for the voice. It has gone. So I'm actually got a soother in my mouth as well when I'm doing this. And my earphone broke, just the other one, just before you threw to me. So I was just about to hear half that conversation. I think what Saturday's race in the rain showed us was that Colton Herta is a great driver, without a doubt. he did that race at precisely the right time in the contract negotiations for Formula One seat, whether that be with Andretti or more realistically now with McLaren going forward for the future years. In wet weather, at a road course as well, it's already tricky. But what made yesterday even more tricky was the fact that the start-finish straight was the oval layout. It was the oval tarmac, which meant it gathered more water. It was very slippery on the start-finish straight, and it was just chaos. And Herta stayed out there on slicks at one point. They came in, put on wets again, then put on slicks. And that save coming out of the pit lane as well, that fantastic, literally cross-handed steering wheel, saving that. No power steering IndyCar at over 100 miles an hour. Just thumbs up. He got a lot of heads turned to him yesterday as well, in the motorsport word. And to win as well, just top dog. And I said on the broadcast, I think yesterday, how good would it be that if he could repeat what Will Power and Simon Pageant have done in recent years and win the road course and then go on to win the 500 in 2 weeks' time?
Yeah, Josh, I think that would be really incredible if Colton Herta was able to do that. And I think Herta and Andretti Autosport, they certainly have to be one of the favorites to win this year's 106th Indianapolis 500. And that save we've been talking about, a lot of people are going to be talking about that for a very long time throughout the year. Probably the best save we've seen so far from any motor racing series worldwide. It was just so awesome for him to do that in those type of track conditions, because most drivers, 9 times out of 10, they're going to lose it and they're going to go around. I still have no idea how Colton Herta was able to save that. And getting back to the question, I think it was obviously a major statement for him to win the race in the manner that he did, and he's going to be carrying a whole bunch of momentum going into the Indy 500, and we know Indy 500 double points, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the program. But I think Colton Herta, he finishes the month of May strong. He's definitely going to be in the hunt for the championship. He moved up from 11th to 6th in the championship standings after winning the GMR Grand Prix, and his performance alone absolutely justifies all of the hype that he could be a future Formula One driver. And see a chat right there from A Day in the Life said, "Will Pato O'Ward be happy in IndyCar for another year?" It seems like that Pato O'Ward and McLaren are figuring out something with their contract. Do I think he's going to be happy though? No, I think Pato's going to be very frustrated, because Colton Herta, they've been racing against each other for many years now, dating back to when they were racing in the junior categories. It's been Pato O'Ward and Colton Herta back and forth, and then Pato, I've already alluded to this in previous shows, that Pato had already been integrated with the McLaren team, and all of a sudden, here comes Colton Herta, and he gets to sign the young driver deal to test with McLaren. But Pato O'Ward, although he got to test a McLaren Formula One car last year at Abu Dhabi, he didn't get the same deal that Colton Herta got. So I can imagine that's very, very frustrating for Pato O'Ward. And at the beginning of this season, it really seemed like that Pato O'Ward and Matt McLaren, things were absolutely going south. And a lot of people question with some of the mistakes O'Ward made at the beginning of the season. Was he getting too distracted and caught up in racing and potentially racing in Formula One, that he wasn't necessarily paying close attention to his day job? But it seems like Pato's really put all of that behind him now, and just going out there and trying to do his current job the best way that he can. Although he didn't really get to finish a stint in the Indy road course, I think Pato O'Ward's going to be fine moving forward into the summer months in this year's IndyCar season. I see David right there says that was a fantastic and bonkers IndyCar race all around. Yes, that race had absolutely everything. And in the history of this GMR Grand Prix, we saw the most overtakes we've ever seen in this race. And yesterday in Grid Live pre-race, we kept talking about this track been known for, not many overtaking opportunity, maybe about 2 or 3 good overtaking spots. And we saw a whole bunch of passing yesterday, and definitely have to say that event is a big success. And some of the top drivers in the championship in the grid ranking struggled. Alex Palou spun and finished 18th, 1 lap down. Joseph Newgarden, 25th, after Alexander Rossi squeezed him down across the nose of Jack Harvey. Scott McLaughlin spun under caution on a wet racetrack. However, Will Power, continuing his impressive start to the year in consistency, pulled off another podium and has taken the points lead, continuing his 100% top 5 finish rate. And Power leads the championship by 14 points over Alex Palou heading into the Indy 500. And as I just mentioned, Indy 500 is a double points event, so the championship is wide open. Depending on how you do in the Indy 500, it can make or break your championship. For drivers who aren't towards the front in the championship or lost ground this weekend at the GMR Grand Prix, does the Indy 500 being a double points event give them hope that they can get into the fight?
Absolutely. Because you mentioned Kobe, the Indy 500 is a double points weekend. So even if you're outside the top 10, and if you have a good, strong performance, you can get right back in this championship. There's less than 100 points that that separates the top 10. I think this championship is wide open. So if you had a bad weekend, like we saw drivers you mentioned, Scott McLaughlin, he spun in the rain on slick tires. Alex Palou finished a lap down. Yeah, he's second in points. But everyone wants to win the Borg Warner Trophy, capture the Indy 500. It's just 2 weeks away. So now everyone's going to be turning for practice, qualifying, and to see who can win the Indy 500.
You know me, I tend to be a bit of a purist, so I've never been a big fan of double points, especially not at the finale. I'm glad that they've stopped doing that in recent years, but I guess if there is one race where it's maybe warranted, it merits having a little bit of a bonus from a championship, it is the Indianapolis 500, since it's such a big deal. A lot of people are right with you there. I think a lot of people love going to the race, love watching the race. It's the one race a year that everybody pays attention to outside the sport. And, I think that maybe merits a little bit of a bonus there, more so than certainly any other race, certainly even the season finale, which sometimes bounces around from track to track and doesn't have the longevity or tradition that the Indianapolis 500 has. But to answer the question, I think points are probably the furthest thing from everybody's mind when you walk into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 500. It's early enough in the season. Everybody is so focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's winning the 500. They're not going to get caught up in the championship point standings on this particular weekend. So, obviously mathematically it does help to have a good points day, if you will. I know that term gets used less and less these days, particularly on the NASCAR side of things, because of how their championship format has evolved over the recent years. But realistically speaking, I don't know that that's going to be on the minds of too many here. They just want to go out and win their biggest race of the year, win what's arguably the biggest race in the world. Maybe there's a little bit of debate between that and Le Mans or another race like that. But I think at the forefront of everybody's mind is going to be one thing and one thing only, and that's winning the Indianapolis 500, not necessarily worrying about trying to take advantage of double points by going out and getting a top five. If you're running in the top five at the Indy 500, you might as well be focused on going for the win.
I totally agree with you, Ben. You bring up a real excellent point here, and this is also a debate that a lot of people have. What's more important, winning the Indy 500 or having a bunch of IndyCar championships? And in the past, we've seen drivers who have IndyCar championships say that they would trade their IndyCar championship, even multiple IndyCar championships, just to get one Indy 500. And a lot of people will say that this one race is more important than the entire IndyCar championship because this is the greatest spectacle in racing. It's one of the top crown jewel motor racing events in the world. Drivers all over the world dream of coming to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and running in this great event. And I do agree with you, Ben, that I don't think a lot of drivers are going to be thinking about points or the championship heading into the Indy 500 because they want their face on that Borg Warner Trophy. They want to drink the milk in victory lane. They want to celebrate under all of the pomp and circumstance because this is such an incredible sporting event. And David says going to the Indy 500 is just an experience that words almost cannot describe. Having been there twice, yeah, David. So many people love the Indianapolis 500. Can't wait to make it there on site myself in the future because the atmosphere I've heard from people who've been there is just absolutely amazing. And it's been a while since we've seen an IndyCar race like we saw in the rain of the GMR Grand Prix. And it was the very first time we saw IndyCar race in the rain with the aero screen and with the changing conditions of wet to dry, back to wet, including a period when some of the drivers were brave enough to be on slick tires on a wet racetrack. Some of the drivers were also very unhappy about the lack of visibility, with the aero screen coming to the checkered flag under caution after Juan Pablo Montoya crashed. Christian Lundgaard crashed into the back of Callum Ilott because the spray from the water on the track impacted his visibility. Overall, how do you think IndyCar handled the entire race from race control, and what can they do to improve the visibility with the aero screen?
I think they handled it quite poorly, personally. Yes, it gave a great spectacle to the race, but I thought it was quite frankly dangerous at some points as well. We had quite a lot of standing water on the start and finish straight as well, and then we had it quite in turns 3 and 4 as well. We had a situation where on dry tyres under the safety car, they were spinning around as well. Even on the wet tyres, they were losing it. The start-finish straight became pretty much like Dancing with Death. We've seen drivers go in there before. A couple of years ago, VK hit the wall there. Going back to F1 days, Ralf Schumacher hit the wall there in a dry race and coming off the banking and broke his back in 04. So it was always giving me a little bit of someone's going to go off there big and vibes as well. And then it happened at the end of the race. Thankfully, he got out of there okay, Lundgaard. But they restarted the race in abysmal conditions with the rain coming down heavier and all the field were on dry tyres. They couldn't change because they closed the pit lane. In these conditions, you keep the pit lanes open. If it's raining and you're on dry tyres, for safety, for God's sake, you keep the pit lane open. Why they closed it, I'll never know. And why it kept being closed, I don't know. That wasn't fair. I think IndyCar need to realise that in these conditions, not very often we have a wet race. And this was a very unique circumstance because it was at Indianapolis. It's got that crossover mixture of tarmac where the start finish race I talked about earlier is the oval material and the rest of the track is a normal racetrack tarmac. They need to be careful on it. They need to realise that if they need to throw the red flag so that everyone can change tyres and get going again, that's an option. They need to realise as well that if the lead driver is saying that I can't see the pace car and I can't see the guy behind me, then that's an indication that the race should be stopped. They need to also realise as well that when they go back to green, they should bunch the field up a bit more and take it as slow as they can into a phased restart. Not tell them that, right, you're going to boot it hard up the last corner, then you go. You take it as slow as you can, make sure everyone's safe, and do it like a start in those conditions where everyone can see what they're doing. They're not hit by visibility. It's all crystal clear as best as it can be. The end of the race, I was caught. We all thought it was a red flag. It went to a timed race. The rain was getting heavier. The cautions came down. We all thought it was a red flag. The race should have been stopped earlier. They kept it for entertainment, and that's the first time I've seen IndyCar treat the series as more of entertainment rather than a sport, because that was dangerous yesterday at some points.
I see we have a comment here from A Day in My Life asking me, I guess, my personal take on this. And I have to say, I guess to answer this question, a good race can easily be ruined when race control fumbles the bag, if you will. And unfortunately, I think race control certainly could have done things a little bit better on Saturday. I don't know if that was the greatest race I've seen in quite some time or the most embarrassing race I've seen in quite some time with, all the different strategies and drivers spinning out and being on slicks when it's pouring down rain, and it was raining in the pits, but drivers were going over to slicks. I mean, I did not want to be a race strategist on Saturday because it was, I'd imagine that must have been one of the toughest jobs you could possibly imagine, trying to figure all that out. But this is my problem with race control and how things were handled. I'm not an engineer. I think the aero screen did a very good job. I don't really feel qualified to answer the second part of the question. I think visibility, anytime you have a wet weather race, is going to be tough. But in terms of how the race was called, so many caution laps were being wasted, especially towards the end. And when they went down, like you mentioned, Josh, to a timed race, because they said it was going to be the race distance or a 2-hour time limit, whichever came first. And it quickly became apparent because we were wasting so many caution laps that we had to go to a timed race. I don't understand. I think there was one caution where Dalton Keller was the only car involved, and it took them multiple laps to get his car removed. And then they got his car removed, and we still spent a couple of laps under caution because they were trying to figure out the running order and where drivers were positioned under yellow. So, that's something that is obviously very important to get right. Brett Bodine and Darrell Waltrip can go back to a race in North Wilkesboro and tell you that much. Absolutely, you want to make sure you get that right. But you have all caution to be figuring that out. You have electronic timing and scoring that has more scoring loops and more telemetry than ever before. There's no excuse in 2022 for that to be the reason that you're delayed under caution and not putting the green flag back out, especially when you have a situation where it's gone down to a timed race because you have a time limit and you're wasting laps under yellow. That's unacceptable. And you're robbing the fans that are staying out in the poor conditions in particular, but also the fans at home. You're robbing them of more green flag laps and more racing that they could be seeing otherwise. Day in the Life also adds here, I believe IndyCar should not race in the rain. They're not Formula One. Wait till Monday. They can wait till Monday. So, obviously if that happens on an oval, they need to do that. I don't believe IndyCar should totally not bother with racing in the rain, though. And even NASCAR as well. I know we've had this discussion a couple of times when it comes to NASCAR on the road courses, particularly at COTA last year. I think there is a way to race in the rain and do it safely, but it does happen very rarely in IndyCar. It seems to not be super common. This was obviously the first test that we got with the new aero screen, so that tells you right there it's been a year and a half since we got this chance to try it out. I think obviously there's still a little bit of work to do, and you bring up Formula One. Obviously they have some work to do given what happened at Spa last year. We have to make sure that never happens again as well. So racing in the rain is very tricky. Visibility is always going to be difficult, but race control, if you're going to try racing in the rain, you have to do it, and you can't do it when you're wasting caution laps trying to position drivers under yellow when, like I said, telemetry is better than ever. There's no excuse for that.
If I could just pop in, so I got a question there, Kobe, as well. But to answer that other question as well, they couldn't race on Sunday or Monday either. They couldn't delay it on the road course because the reason the GMR Grand Prix runs on the Saturday is because they need the Sunday to set up the track for the oval, and the teams need the Monday to set up the cars and the garages for practice on the Tuesday for the 500. So it's a 2-day shift around as well, and it's different cars. It's the road course cars for the GMR Grand Prix, and then they've got to switch it over, change all the bodywork over, and they're not allowed to touch the cars on the Sunday. They've got to do that on the Monday for the oval setup for the aero packs. So that's why there's a 2-day switch over as well. So that's why we have to run on Saturday.
That's a good point, Josh. This is a unique circumstance, obviously, because you've got to convert the track from road course to oval, and of course, all the points that you mentioned there. So very good point.
Yeah, yes, Josh. You guys bring up a lot of great points. Yeah, and Dan the Life says thank you for sharing that you didn't know the circumstances, and getting back to the question itself. And I know in the chat room you were talking about how you're saying you don't think IndyCar should race in the rain, and I think there's a really fine line between what's acceptable to race in the rain and what becomes way too dangerous and chaotic. And Ben brought up the great point about NASCAR at COTA last year. How terrible that race was. Somebody could have seriously got hurt in that race. How dangerous the conditions were. And if it just been just a little bit of rain, and not an absolute monsoon, I think that would be perfectly fine. But it's just a matter, picking and choosing situations and race control determining what's acceptable to race in the rain and what's not. As far as the aero screen go, I think I saw one of the drivers, forgot who it was. They suggested putting a windshield wiper on the aero screen. I'm not an expert in that area, but if they're able to figure out a way to put a windshield wiper on the aero screen, that'll be fantastic to help out with visibility. And Roman Grosjean, he was very upset on the radio, and this goes to another IndyCar rule that I'm not sure if I quite understand. He was upset that he couldn't come to pit road because he would get a penalty for pitting during a close pit when he was stuck on the slick tires. And Grosjean said on the radio that at that point he just wanted to quit racing because of how dangerous it was. He felt like that his safety was in danger because he's on a wet racetrack on slick tires, and he wanted to come into the pits without being penalized. So eventually Grosjean, he had no choice. He had to just come down and take the penalty because it was just way too treacherous at the end when the track had gotten too wet to be out on slick tires. So overall, a learning experience for IndyCar, and we'll see if they're able to learn from everything that went wrong handling this race. And one special moment we want to share with you before moving on to Formula E, Tatiana Calderon led lap 35 at the IMS road course, and this was the very first lap she's led since joining IndyCar at the beginning of this year. And this week, we'll start our special daily coverage of Indy 500 practice in the lead up to qualifying for the 106th running of the Indianapolis 500.
You can race in the rain, you can't race in a storm, and obviously lightning, I think, plays a factor in that as well. So I think that's something to consider there. We shouldn't take the races that we try to run in monsoons and go very poorly, obviously, and use that as an excuse that we shouldn't try racing in light rain or racing in any wet weather at all. I think there are a lot of variables to consider there, and I'll just leave it at that. I want to transition now into Formula E, and the ABB Formula E race weekend had 2 races without a caution flag. And today's race in particular, something very interesting to me, having written for Brock Beard and NASCAR, all 22 starters finished the race on the lead lap, completing all 40 laps. I'm going to have to ask Brock after the show here if that's ever happened in NASCAR. I have to think it probably hasn't. But a very competitive Formula E field. Mortara was 1 position short of making it a sweep of the race wins. He's now second in the points, as you see on screen, 12 behind Stoffel Van Dorn. Van Dorn's teammate, Nick De Vries, won with an aggressive first lap move from 3rd to 1st on the first corner. And like yesterday, De Vries only ever lost the lead while everyone was cycling to activate attack mode. So we'll bring Josh back in here. Were you surprised by the nature of both races this weekend?
Sorry about that. I went to say I was, and then nothing came out. I was actually very, very surprised about the 2 races this weekend. Race 1 on the normal Berlin circuit, I thought that was absolutely fantastic. It took a while to sort of boil up. And then the last 10 minutes was just crash, bang, wall up everywhere. Mortar was on the defensive from Verne as well. We had Evans coming back through. It was a great race. And then we switched it over this morning as well for race 2. And then qualifying was a little bit dull. The practice sessions were dull. If you said we didn't have a caution, well, here's another fact for you. We never had a yellow flag, we never had a red flag, and we never had a safety car. Throughout the entire weekend, across practice, qualifying, and the race, nothing happened. It is one of the quietest weekends we've ever seen in Formula E. In fact, I think this is the only time that everyone's going back with the cars intact on both days. Insane. It was great racing as well, and it's clean racing, so it's a good thumbs up for Formula E. Race 2 was a little bit dull. It had its moments. Attack mode being 8 minutes and for a single activation, compared to the day before, where it was 2 activations for 4 minutes each. That provided the strategy a bit more, as like who's going to go for it when, who's going to defend when as well. And there were some great lunges up the inside at turn 1, where was reversed from turn 10. So we knew that was going to happen. Turn 6 hairpin still provided us the great stuff as it did in race 1. So there was enough variety there on both days to keep casual fans hooked. There was enough variety there to keep motor racing fans puzzled as to why there was no safety cars or crashes. I think it also today was the first ever time that all Formula E cars have finished the race, and all Formula E cars have finished on the lead lap, all of them doing 40 laps of the Lindbergh circuit, they're calling it, aren't they? Because it's in reverse. So remarkable that happened as well. And I don't think we'll see that again for a very, very long time.
And we're now halfway through the Formula E season. Jakarta in Indonesia is the next city scheduled to host the series, a brand new track for Formula E. And then the series heads to Marrakesh before 3 doubleheaders end the season with New York City, London, and Seoul, South Korea. So, Josh, which drivers and teams do you feel are in good shape or in trouble entering the second half? Of course, we only have 5 race weekends left here.
Well, Buemi is definitely in trouble. We were talking about this way back in Grid Network shows that he wants to leave Formula E and go concentrate on world endurance as well, because he's fed up with how the car's performing as well. And this weekend, another bad weekend. He started great. He had a great qualifying position in race 1 and stalled on the grid. We don't usually see a Formula E car stalling, so that was pretty alarm bells ringing. And then today as well, he was just battling and getting involved with everybody as well, and not a great position. In a good position, definitely in a very strong position, is Mitch Evans. He's been strong all the way throughout the season as well. Definitely one of the picks for the championship. Mercedes had an off race in race 1 and had a good race today. Van Dorn third, Nick de Vries winning. So a double podium for Mercedes in their last ever home Grand Prix. I think also, looking into it, my personal pick for a driver who's doing really, really badly is Sam Bird. Bird, who was promised so much this season, has had a shocker, and it's halfway through the season he hasn't won a race yet. Van Dorn and Mercedes having up and down years throughout. Is Buemi still in Formula E? Will he leave? Yes, Buemi is still in Formula E as well. He's struggling with an underperforming Nissan as well. And Edward Hunter, who could be with us tonight, but is one of the co-commentators with me as well, says Buemi is a very fast driver, but he's stuck with a very unreliable car. So it's a question of how long is he going to put up with it as well. Give me a second. How long is he going to put up with it going forward? So I'm thinking we're going to see a battle between the Jaguars of Evans and the Mercedes of Van Dorn, and definitely throwing his hat into the ring this weekend is Mortara, with two very, very, very strong races. So I'm liking the way this is looking for the rest of the season. Halfway, 5 races left in terms of weekends. Jakarta, let's see if we can do it. So it's Jakarta, Marrakesh, London, New York, and Seoul in South Korea. I may be ill, but I still get the calendars right.
Well, you bring up a good point about Sam Bird. I think, obviously the series is still very, very young compared to the rest of the series that we cover here on Grid Network. But I think Bird is maybe arguably the best Formula E driver to still be searching for his first championship. He's come up short several years, but been right there in the mix. And then we had the graphic just up there, not even in the top 10 this year. So it certainly has been a struggle for him to start this year. Josh, I want to thank you. I know it's very, I want to say late, but it's actually early in the morning over for you in the UK. So we will let you get some rest, but thanks for sticking it out with us. As Adam said before you came on here, you're an absolute trooper, and we certainly appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. And I've just got a text message from Ed that he sent me as well, because he got me on tonight about Formula E. So I'll quickly read that out for you. I'll have to swivel my chair. Come into my cubicle.
I apologize. Are you staying for the MotoGP section?
Oh, yes, of course. I forgot.
Okay. Your name wasn't on the script. I apologize. I thought Adam was taking those questions. So
sorry, completely.
Feel free to stick around as long as you like. I don't mean to kick you off here, but
I'll stay. To be fair, I forgot about MotoGP. It's been that sort of day. I'll quickly read this thing out from Ed then as well. So come into my cubicle, and I'll tell. Ed says, my one shining moment of the weekend would be Alexander Sims' performance in qualifying ahead of race 1 on Saturday. He'd not scored any points all season. His confidence was very low after Monaco when he told Jack Pickering from Formula E Zone. He said, I don't know why what I'm doing isn't working. Suddenly he gets into the duels and he immediately delivers, beats Fern by the smallest of margins and almost puts it on pole. Then he holds on to 9th and gets 2 points for the struggling Mahindra squad. A true underdog performance from someone fighting for his future in Formula E. And Roland gets more points with 7th on Sunday to bring the team back up to 8th ahead of Neo 333 and Nissan in the championship. That's Ed Hunter's point of view on the Formula E race this weekend as well. And I will stick around for the MotoGP. I was here for that. And then I'll disappear for NASCAR.
Sounds good. Well, I will hand it over to Kobe for driver spotlight, and then we'll come back and discuss MotoGP.
Yeah, taking a quick break to look at some of the races around the world in our driver spotlight. As I mentioned before, Tatiana Calderon led her first lap ever in IndyCar competition at IMS yesterday during the GMR Grand Prix and finished 15th. Both Amber Balkin and Tony Breidinger finished in the top 10 in Arquette, Kansas. Brittany Force picked up her 3rd win of 2022 in NHRA and extended her points lead. And during her final run, she hit 326 miles per hour. It always amazes me how fast those cars can go in a straight line. Dorian Penn passed 13 cars to get her 3rd place finish in race 2. Next weekend, W Series is back. And on Thursday, Joe and Daniel on Women in Motorsports will preview the W Series race weekend in Spain. Roger Carew finished a strong 2nd place in the ARCA Menard Series race at Kansas. In the Kansas truck race, Jesse Awuji finished 35th after getting parked for failing to maintain minimum speed. Bubba Wallace got all the way up to the top 5 at Kansas, but the 2311 Racing pit crew let him down again. lost tons of track position, but Wallace was able to salvage something and finished inside the top 10 at the MS road course. Ernie Francis Jr. finished a pair at Indy Lights Racing in 9th and 10th, so it was definitely a tough weekend for Ernie in the championship. Be sure to visit the African American Racers Association website. Meanwhile, none of the Racing Pride ambassadors were on track this weekend, but we still have a link to their website along with all the others in the video description.
And moving on now to MotoGP, the French Grand Prix at the Bugatti circuit saw Enea Bastianini take his third win of the year after forcing Pecco Bagnaia into a mistake while battling for the lead with 7 laps to go. Espargaro and Bastianini are both within striking distance to take the points lead in Spain. The Ducatis were too powerful for Quartararo today, who came home in 4th in today's race, but he is still the points leader. Rins is in 4th, 33 points back. He crashed out today and is looking for plans outside Suzuki. So, Josh, was Pecco Bagnaia's mistake from pushing it too hard, or was it a matter of the conditions?
The amount of times he keeps dropping it in when he's leading a race, I'm starting to think he got a choking problem as well. I mean, I can relate to that at the moment, but he dropped it in Italy last year at Mugello. He dropped it at San Marino. He dropped it now here today in France. He dropped it earlier in the season as well. It's getting to the point where if I was Ducati, I'd start to be having a word with him as well, because last year dropping it on the road cost him the World Championship. And this year, it's costing him, again, closing up on Quartararo, because now Bastianini's taken that slot to close up to Quartararo in the standings. Bagnaia, it was telegraphed that he was going to drop it. I was saying in the commentary as well. Megan couldn't join me because, ironically, she's got what I've got. But Ian Burch was with me as well. And I was saying to him as well, we both agreed, Bagnaia was either going to win it or bin it. And he binned it. And it was telegraphed what he was going to do. Absolutely telegraphed. He ran too deep at Garageville and locked over, and then he dropped it at Le Cru de Mont the last corner. Day in Life says, "It's over, lives in my head forever" from last year. Is that what I screamed? I think that's what I screamed, wasn't it? I screamed as well. It's over as well. It's all done and that. Yeah, one of the most bizarre moments, because we were watching him in San Marino last year and he just turned it and dropped it. So, bad result and bad weekend for Pecco after having such a strong performance in qualifying and looking like this could be his shot for a double back-to-back win after Spain. So high to low, it's typical Pecco. I feel sorry for him. I really, really do. But as you said, Bastianini, fantastic today on that Ducati. That Guineschi team have gone through so much in the past 12 months, lost their owner, his wife taking over, new consortium team owners, new factory Ducati bike. It's all coming together. It's like a Brawn GP story from 2009, to put it in similarity terms. It's fantastic. I'm loving seeing it, and I hope I never tire of seeing it as well.
And Catalunya in Spain is the next race for the MotoGP World Championship. And again, it looks like a struggle is ahead for the Yamahas, especially with their lack of top speed. Ducati and Bastianini seem to be hit or miss lately, while Quartararo and Espargaro are currently 1-2 in the championship. So, Josh, for those two riders, with leaving with any finish ahead of Bastianini be the primary goal, or at least ahead in the points, what should be one of their goals as we head to Spain on the next race on the calendar?
I think it's Spain next. I thought it was Italy. Unless I've got it wrong.
I must admit, it's not my strong suit, and I know our chair says Spain, but I don't.
I'll go with Spain. I don't know when Italy is, unless Spain's unless I've got my calendar really wrong. And what week are we in? Okay, yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, the next race, either way, either it's Mugello or Catalunya, it's got that long start-finish run on both circuits as well that help it out. So. It's going to be quite entertaining to see. Ducati go strong at the circuits as well. They're going to be wanting to go in for the top dog. And someone's just telling me something here in the chat as well. It is Italy then Spain. Yeah, okay. So it is Mugello next. I thought so. So Mugello next. Home circuit for Ducati. They're going to be wanting to go there with the new bike as well. They've got it up to speed finally. We knew it would take a couple of races. They're going to want to go there to get victorious. They're going to have a very strong word with Pecco Bagnaia. Jack Miller also had a shot today at taking the race win. After a demon start, he sort of dropped back during the race as well and let Pecco through with a team order. So that's not going to be on the cards at Mugello. Oh, no, it's not. Marquez goes well at Mugello as well. He's a very strong rider at that track as well. We remember the demon battles he had with Jorge Lorenzo there for three races he's done there with race winnings. Quartararo, yes, it could be his circuit, but it's not really Yamaha's strong suit. They keep having engine failures there. So I think it's going to be great. And then fast forward to Spain, the next two races as well. We may as well cover that. Spain is a Yamaha circuit. That's going to be key to see. The tight, twisty sectors of 2 and 3 suit the Yamaha. They get a nice flow of it. Ducati don't like the corners at that track. They do better down the start-finish straight, so that's going to be them suffering. The one bike that seems to be working with it all is the KTM. It goes very well at Mugello. It goes very, very, very well at Catalonia. So watch out for them. Honda, they're nowhere. Their bike is a write-off once again. Marquez breaking his shoulder in 2020 has set back their development for years, and this is the problem that they had. They set the entire Honda factory up on one rider. It's unbelievable. And day in life, brilliant. Thanks for reminding me. The doctor has retired his number as well. G-Sport retiring numbers in motorsport. Excuse me. In all honesty, I think it's right that Valentino Rossi's number has been retired because it's a lot of pressure. It's like Michael Schumacher's number should have been retired as well that he raced with back in the day as well. With he ran with, what was it, 5 when he chose the number. That should have been retired, but now it's Vettel's, so it can't be. I personally think that it's got to be for a special reason. Either the rider or driver has been killed while using that number. Jules Bianchi as well, Jason Tepasquier, Nicky Hayden, not killed while racing, but killed in his career still, just after he left MotoGP. It's right for those numbers to be retired as a mark of respect, but this is the first time I can remember a number being retired in terms of legacy. That's a bit wrong for me. Still, and that's the case, when are we going to see the 99 retired, or the 26, or the 27, the 27s are out there as well? When's Marc Marquez's 93 going to get retired? Is it going to happen as soon as he stops racing? I mean, we're going to end up in this strange situation where we're going to have to go from 100 until 199 because the first 99 are going to get locked out at this rate. It's a bit silly. It really is.
Yeah, and Josh, you are, like Ben said, you are a real trooper for staying up with us. We know.
Thank you.
Really late over there in the UK, so we'll let you go. And before we do, we want to know what's your grade 1 shining moment from this motorsports weekend.
Oh, Colton Herta. End of. What a save. Coming out of the pit lane as well. That's one of the best saves I've ever seen in motorsport. Indy cars, no power steering, full opposite lock on a wet track on dry tyres that aren't heated up, and he saved it. Beautiful. Then to go on to win the race as well after starting, I think, 14th on the grid. Brilliant. That is textbook as well. And first time Herta's won on the road course there. That's fingers crossed he can win on the 500 course now, because I think everyone can agree it's long overdue that a Herta has never won at that track. It's time to bring it back. Let's have Colton Herta as a win. And tell you what, as well, I know you three are going to be with us on some of the shows next week, because you, Adam and UKB, are going to be hosting for now, was it 10 days running?
Yep.
Me and Ben are going to alternate on days joining you. But I think my early pick a winner for this is going to be Colton Herta. He's in such a form. Looks good.
Yeah, Colton Herta definitely going to be one of the early favorites for the Indianapolis 500. I'm not ready to make him my official pick a winner yet. I want to see how things go for the rest of the month of May throughout practice and qualifying before I'm able to confidently say Colton Herta can win the Indy 500 this year, but I think he's certainly capable of doing it. And Andretti Autosport, I think they're going to be strong. See what Team Penske has for him. Chip Ganassi Racing. There's just a lot of competitive teams. I think it's going to be a fun 106 Indianapolis 500, and then the left says with no bumping, easy to predict who wins. But what I will say, all of the teams and drivers will be able to sleep a lot easier this year. So you won't have to worry about missing the biggest race, especially if you're running full time in the thick of the championship and miss the race, and then championship goes bye. Just like that. And I guess we'll let you go bye now, Josh, and get some sleep.
I go night. Just keep the live going.
This time it's for real. We'll actually let you go.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll let you go, Josh. Yeah.
So thank you again.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you throughout the week as well for the practice. And
Yes, sir.
let's hope that
Yes, sir.
I'm going to do some emergency voice treatment tomorrow because it took me 5 days to get it back and I've blown it over a weekend. And there's so much more to do. So tomorrow I'm literally going to do every thing possible. I've even booked a doctor's appointment. So I am going to get fit and I will be back on Tuesday, ready for day 1 of practice. Thanks, guys. I'm going to go bye now.
Yes, sir. We'll see you Tuesday.
Just gained a subscriber, so.
Thank you very much. It just popped up. It has just popped up. Thank you very much for taking the live.
Okay, Josh, we'll let you go. We'll see you this week when we do our special evening coverage of Grit Tonight, recapping each day of Indianapolis 500 practice. And switching gears now to NASCAR. Yesterday on Grit Live pre-race, we asked who would show up against the Chevrolets, since a lot of people thought Chevy might be the favorite this weekend. I guess the Toyota teams must have watched our show because they answered big time. In today's NASCAR Cup Series Advent Health 400, all 6 Toyotas finished inside the top 10, both 2311, and all 4 Joe Gibbs Racing. Toyotas looked fast. 2311 had the speed with Kurt Busch winning the race, but lousy pit stops ruined Bubba Wallace's day. He said he had a shot to win, and a little bit later we'll get more into detail about Bubba Wallace and his number 23 team constantly letting him down on pit road. But looking at Toyota as a whole, what's Toyota's win today a major statement of how strong they can be on the 1.5-mile tracks?
Well, I don't know that Bubba had a shot to win. I think certainly he was going to finish in the top 10 regardless. Certainly had a shot at the top 5. His teammate was just so quick today and was battling obviously with the Kyle and Kyle show, as he said on the front stretch interview, Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch. So, a win would have maybe been a little bit of a stretch, but he certainly had a shot at the top 5 with how he was running. And it's unfortunate that his pit crew had a couple of mistakes today. I know we'll get into that later in the show. But Toyota as a whole, I mean, clearly Bubba was able to drive back up through the field and recover to a top 10, which is, I think, only his second top 10 of the year after his runner-up at the 500. Obviously, his teammate Kurt Busch getting the win today, that's a huge confidence boost for 2311. And then to see, Joe Gibbs Racing as well, Christopher Bell sitting on the pole and Kyle Busch being up there battling with his brother for the win, and Hamlin and Truex showing a lot of speed as well. All 6 Toyotas showed tremendous speed today, and they proved that whatever problems that they've had fixed, at least for this particular weekend, they got them sorted out. Certainly a statement of where their program is right now. Will they be able to maintain it is the big question mark. We'll have to get into a couple more 1.5-mile tracks before I can definitively say that they're like championship favorites or anything. But really, it could not have been much of a better race weekend for Toyota. They sat on pole, they won the race, and they did it with each of their 2 major Cup Series teams. So a great weekend for all of TRD and Toyota Racing.
I wonder if Michael Jordan should have went to the race in Kansas, since last weekend he was in Miami and he was happy that he wasn't at Darlington. But overall, Toyota came in today and they ran exceptionally well all race long. And this is kind of a cool thing I saw online. Kurt Busch can now say he won in a Chevrolet, Ford, a Dodge, and a Toyota. I don't know any other drivers that can say that. That's pretty remarkable. Obviously, Kurt Busch had a heck of a day. Toyota was strong all race long. I truly thought that Bubba Wallace was going to have. I thought he was going to win the race, but I'm glad he came home with a top 10 finish. And to me, the end of dating life said, but never in a Pontiac. He raced Pontiacs from 2001 to 2003. Absolutely, he did. So that's the only manufacturer that Kurt Busch never won, and was a Pontiac. So overall, I'm happy for Toyota. They look strong today, and it's going to be interesting to see moving forward, because the next points race is the longest race in the season, the Coca-Cola 600. We start in the daytime and end at night. That's going to be so. Could Toyota be a factor in the longest race of the season? We'll just have to find out in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and I do have to say that I thought the racing today overall was really incredible from the start to the finish. And I know in years past, a lot of people dread these mile-and-a-half tracks, but with the new next gen car, it really seems like the cars work extremely well on these type of tracks. And if Kansas was any indication of how things are going, maybe we can look forward to the Coca-Cola 600 this year and see some great racing at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And I know, with this race being the longest 400 laps, 600 miles, it seems like it kind of drags on. But if the next gen car can put on a really good show, I think a lot of people will be able to stay tuned in. And next weekend is the All-Star race at Texas Motor Speedway. And if the next gen car can put on a great race at Texas, anything is possible. And in the last 4 races leading up to Dover, it's been really tough time for Kurt Busch, but he's turned his luck around now, getting a big victory for Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan in the Jumpman colors. Today, lots of tough luck for others who had tire pressure issues. There was too low for drivers like Daniel Suarez, Chase Elliott, and William Byron, who was leading at the time when his left rear went out. Goodyear sent out a message to the teams before the race, warning them about the tire pressures on the left rear, and they were being very specific that the left rear might have issues if they got too aggressive with their tire pressure. But the teams will often flirt with going lower to get more grip. Several of the teams suffered the consequences of being too aggressive today with tire pressure and saw their days ruined. The most watched tire issue of the day belonged to Eric Jones, whose lug nut wouldn't come off for the longest time, but thankfully didn't come close to breaking Valtteri Bottas' record of the longest tire change ever, which lasted for a couple of days. Is the issue with the tires becoming a major problem? Is this something that that NASCAR should be on by now, and should they consider clamping down on adjusting the air pressure similar to other racing series?
Yeah, Kobe. I know it's a new car this year, but we've seen a lot of tire problems all season long. Last year we really didn't see any. But this year, it's been remarkable, the number of times we've seen tires, leave cars, like we saw what happened to Chase Elliott. I think NASCAR should consider clamping down on this, and if they do, hopefully we won't have any more problems going forward in the season.
I want to take this moment to publicly apologize to everybody that I was freaking out about the change to the single lug nut or the new tires in any way, shape, or form on the next gen car. I said that you all have absolutely nothing to worry about. You were dying on the wrong hills. And I want to take this moment to formally apologize, because clearly you were onto something that I completely missed. We had this issue right from the start with tires falling off, crews not getting the lug nuts secured. How many 4-race suspensions for crew chiefs are we up to now? It's been absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure some of that falls on the crews, but if it happens so often, I got to think there's a systemic problem behind it as well. We had issues at Fontana in particular where drivers couldn't even make it back to the pits with a flat tire. And now we have this issue today where Goodyear is literally warning the teams before the race that the left rear tires may be in trouble. And I saw Front Stretch posted an interview to their YouTube channel with one of Goodyear's executives. Anytime you're talking to the Goodyear people during the race or after the race, it's usually not a good sign. If they bring a good tire, if they do their jobs, obviously we're going to be focused on the race. But if we're talking to them, it's usually because we had a lot of issues during the race. We want to get to the bottom of what's causing them. So I think this is something that Goodyear certainly has to look at in terms of today's issues. But like I've been saying on this show the last couple of weeks, there seems to be a fundamental problem or two with the wheels on the next gen car. The car has raced beautifully. The mile-and-a-half product is, 1,000 times better than the 550 package. I think I've said on this program that we can officially throw that in the garbage and never think about it again. It's been absolutely phenomenal, but we have had some problems with the tires. The car is not yet perfect, and I think we have some problems on our hands that we need to address. A Day in the Life brings up a good point as well. Is NASCAR and Goodyear partners? Obviously they are. Why not look at Firestone or Hoosier? There are slap shoes videos on that, on why tire wars, I think, are not a good idea. I think competition can be a good thing in many respects, but tire wars are not one of them, because when you have a tire war, you have the people at Goodyear and Firestone, or Goodyear and Hoosier, or whatever companies are involved. They're going to be pushing the limits to try to outdo one another. And sometimes that leads to the issue of safety and crossing the line when it comes to those limits, which leads to more accidents. And, you want to talk about issues with the next gen car, safety has come up as well. So that's something that I'm sure is on the front of everybody's minds. If Goodyear were to pull out, then certainly you would reach out to a company like Firestone, who have done the tires for IndyCar for many, many years. Hoosier obviously have experience with ARCA not so long ago. I know General Tire is doing that now, but they have experience as well. I'm sure they could put together a program like that. But you don't want, and that's the other thing that you run into as well, the United States Grand Prix in 2005. So, it's not just a NASCAR thing. Anytime there's a tire war, I think it's certainly going to be problematic. So I don't want to see that. Who knows how much longer Goodyear is going to be the exclusive supplier. I don't see any reason why they would pull out anytime soon, but we don't want to get into that where we have competing brands at the moment. I think it's best to just have one tire supplier. Pirelli can do F1, Firestone can do IndyCar, Goodyear can do NASCAR, and we can focus on making those tires the best that we can be without having to worry about one-upping each other. But to draw it all back, it is an issue, and it's an issue that I think the teams and NASCAR and Goodyear are all going to have to work together on to try to sort out, because it was almost happening on cue. Larry Mack was talking about his trends, 20 to 25 laps, and then there goes another one. So fortunately, it didn't affect, Kurt Busch was the dominant car of the day. In many respects, he was still able to win the race. But, anytime that's on the driver's minds, it's certainly not a good feeling.
Yeah, Ben, it's certainly not a good feeling at all. And we're now 13 races into the season. We're still talking about all the issues in the tire. I feel like by now NASCAR should have had all of these problems figured out. And yeah, understand it's a new car, lots of new technology, but we're getting to the point in the season where they need to get a handle on all of this and make sure that this is not going to be the talk every race. If it's not about drivers with flat tires not being able to make it back, now it's about left rears going down. So it seems like NASCAR certainly still has a lot to figure out about this next gen car. So tires are not going to be ruining a lot of people's days like we saw today. And Kurt Busch, when he went in the race, he was able to hold off Kyle Larson and his brother Kyle Busch for the win. Kurt squeezed by Larson in the final laps of the race. Denny Hamlin met Kurt on pit road after the race, looking very emotional, which is a side of Denny we don't really see that often. And here's the question. Does 23XI's performance today build confidence for the entire team, both Bubba Wallace and Kurt Busch, as we get ready for the next points race, the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway on Memorial Day weekend? And what does 23XI need to do about the same mistakes over and over happening on pit road?
We got a two-part question there. I guess I'll take the first part to open my answer. It's a huge confidence boost. Like I mentioned, I think it's a huge confidence boost for Toyota in general, but particularly for 23XI. Hasn't been the greatest start to the year for them. I know Kurt Busch has gotten a couple of top 10s here and there, but, there have been some struggles for Toyota in general. But, even Gibbs, I feel like, you saw Hamlin pick up a win this year. Kyle Busch won on the Bristol Dirt. So there's been some strong runs for those drivers. But 23XI, I think, have been a little bit behind Gibbs. And then today, for Kurt to go out and get the win, Bubba Wallace finishing 10th, probably should have finished a little bit better than that. It's certainly a great day for them and certainly has to raise the morale at that company. Unfortunately, this is going to sound kind of harsh, but I don't think there's any sugarcoating it. I think there need to be some changes as to who's pitting Bubba Wallace's car. I said on Twitter during the race that the 23 pit crew performance is simply unacceptable for the Cup Series level. When you have a driver that has admittedly been a little bit underwhelming this year and has an opportunity to have what's, I think, you could say the best finish, certainly the best finish on a non-super speedway race, the best race on a non-super speedway that he's had all season, and you're flirting with the top 5 and then throw it away on pit road, not once, but twice. Like I said, it's unacceptable. There's no way to sugarcoat it. I think Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin's team is going to have to take a look at who's pitting that car and see if some changes need to be made, because what's happening with Bubba Wallace right now is very unfortunate. like I said, should have finished a little bit better than 10th today, all things considered. I'm glad he was at least able to recover up from there. David says, I think, or it's huge for Kurt and Toyota. I think Bubba can be happy that on sheer pace and car, he has had a very good car the last few weeks. That pit crew definitely has to step it up, though. Completely agree with everything you said. It's been a great step forward, but the pit crew needs to match that. He also says, I think with the minds and smarts of people in NASCAR, these teams in Goodyear, they can make it better with the tires, with tire pressures, and so forth. And I think that's true. You know, historically, anytime there's been an issue, they've usually been able to bounce back and find the source of the problem. Of course, it's difficult to do that within just the time frame of a single race weekend, so it was always going to be a struggle today. But there are smart people at Goodyear. There are smart people working on these cars. I'm sure they're going to figure it out eventually. It's a new car, you know, so we're going to have some learning curves there. But getting back to Toyota in 2311, the pit crew is certainly the biggest issue with that team right now. They have some things to figure out. Even Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch was leading the race coming into the final caution, final set of pit stops, and the crew lost in 2 spots. He ended up falling back to third. He had to fight his way back through for the win. Now, his car was so strong today, but he was able to do that. But it still put him at a disadvantage. So the 45 crew, it didn't cost their driver the win today, but there's some room for improvement on that side of things as well.
Yeah, and before I answer the question, we've all heard of the Darlington, getting a Darlington stripe. Darlington, well, I think I'll say what Kyle Larson did today. I'll give him a sunflower stripe in honor of the race being in Kansas, how he got in the wall a couple times, how he slid in there. So I think, I was thinking about what can we call it, when we're racing in Kansas and someone slides in the wall. I think the sunflower stripe is a pretty cool name. Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think? And go back to the question. I think this is huge momentum going into the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte for 2311 racing. After what we saw from Kurt Busch today, he even said in the post-race interview with Jamie Little, he said that almost he had the GOAT, Michael Jordan, in his car, and to see him win with that sponsorship. I know Michael Jordan's got to be somewhere celebrating, and like I mentioned earlier, it's NASCAR's longest race of the season coming up in the Coca-Cola 600. It's going to be interesting to see how everything develops, going from the daytime into nighttime, and about the pit crews, I do think changes are needed. Maybe switch some personnel around from one crew to another crew, and we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah. We also have a question in the chat room, if that can be displayed on the screen. Oh yeah, there it is, from another one from A Day in the Life. Is the 2311 pit crew a part of Joe Gibbs Racing or a part of 2311? Well, the way that works is that they have a Joe Gibbs Racing train pit crew, which is sent to 2311 Racing. And another thing that needs to be clarified, I understand on Twitter, some people were talking about it, how it's not 100% true when they say that 2311 is running a Joe Gibbs car, but the right way to say it is that Joe Gibbs Racing provides support to 2311, while the 2311's own people are the ones who are preparing these cars and getting them running right. So I guess you can't necessarily say that they're running a 100% Joe Gibbs Racing car, just like the same ones you see that Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, and everyone else at JGR's driving. And getting back to the question itself, I think this has to be a huge confidence boost for 2311, because things haven't really been going that well for them lately. Both 2311 cars taken out on the final lap at Talladega. Both 2311 racing cars get taken out in a crash at Darlington. And for both cars as they've run today, you have to feel extremely happy. And also another bad race for them was Richmond, when both 2311 cars were outside of the top 30 in terms of speed, and then having 2 cars that were capable of finishing inside the top 5. today definitely a massive boost for the entire team as we head into these next 2 weeks. The All-Star Race at Texas and the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. I think today, although his pit crew let him down again, not the first time, not the second time, I don't think not even the third time either. Bubba Wallace should feel really happy with the speed of the car, knowing that they give me a car that I can run inside the top 5, I can run inside the top 10 with, and maybe if the pit crew gets together, Bubba Wallace is having a great day, puts together a complete race, maybe he can finish inside the top 10 and the top 5 and potentially contend for wins more often than not. And in regards to the pit crew, as Ben was saying, it's kind of a harsh assessment, but it's true. It's unacceptable that this particular team on the number 23 pit crew keeps making the same mistakes over and over, because usually when people make mistakes a few times, they'll learn from it. But if you're still making the same mistakes and still not learning from them, it just becomes very repetitive. And also, it would not surprise me at some point in the future if Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan start to look around, see who's available, and maybe make some changes to that pit crew, because this cannot keep happening with this race team. And next, shifting gears, we're gonna take a look at the class winners from the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship Lexus Grand Prix at Mid Ohio. Overall race winners in DPI, the number 10 Wayne Taylor Racing Acura, Ricky Taylor and Felipe Albuquerque got the big victory in the state of Ohio. LMP2, the number 81 Dragon Speed Oracle, Juan Pablo Montoya and Henrique Hedman took class honors, and what a last 24 hours has been for Juan Pablo Montoya, racing in the wet at Indianapolis, running inside the top 5 late, only to crash out at the end and didn't get the finish he deserved. Then he went to the Taco Bell drive-through, drove all the way to Ohio, then ends up winning in LMP2 at Mid Ohio. LMP3 class winners, number 54 Core Autosport Ligier, Colin Braun and John Bennett, and GTD, the number 70 Inception Racing McLaren, Jordan Pepper and Brendan Arieb were initially declared the winners, but ended up failing post-race inspection, and really wipes out what an effort, what a drive that was by Jordan Pepper at the end, running on field mileage and able to pass both BMWs there at the end. And Jordan Pepper posted on Twitter after the race that he was responding to the failing post-race inspection. He said that he's gutted. Unfortunately, got stripped of the win because of being a tiny bit underweight. After all, it hurts. And he says we win as a team, lose as a team. And honestly, we showed what we were capable of. And he said he's proud of his boys, no matter what. And by the Inception Racing McLaren failing post-race inspection, it gave the GTD class win to the number 96 Turner Motorsport BMW M4 GT3 of Bill Oberlin and Robbie Foley. The next IMSA race is June 4th, when DPI and GTD visits Belle Isle Park for the final Detroit Grand Prix here. The race is going to move to the streets of downtown Detroit in 2023. And lastly, a special shout out to the winners of the 2022 Liqui Moly Bathurst 12 Hour, the number 75 Sun Energy One Racing Mercedes AMG GT3, a full sweep of the overall podium for Mercedes, but the big winners were Jules Gounon, Lucas Stoltz, Kenny Habul, and Martin Conrad.
Thank you, Kobe. Now we'll move on to take a look at the grid ranking. We had a big shakeup in it this week, partially because of IndyCar's wild GMR Grand Prix, which we've been talking about all program. The series goes from having 4 drivers in the top 10 down to only 2. This allowed Chaz Mostert and Stoffel Van Dorn, as you can see, they're 10th and 9th respectively, to break into the grid ranking top 10. Kobe, we'll start with you first. Do you believe Van Dorn can put together a consistent run in the second half of the Formula E season with top 5s and podiums? Kobe, I think you're muted here.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Was muted.
No worries.
But yeah, but to answer your question, I think Stoffel Van Dorn can certainly put together a consistent run with top 5s and podium results. I mean, he's been doing extremely well lately in FIA Formula E. Mercedes certainly has one of the best powertrains out there, and I certainly think him, his teammate Nick DeVries, they can keep running extremely well, clicking off race wins. Think both Mercedes drivers, not just Stoffel Van Dorn, but also Nick DeVries. I think they can really put together quite a run in the second half of the Formula E season.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kobe, and I would kind of Stoffel Van Dorn to be a factor in the Formula E World Championship. I could see him winning a few winning some races and getting on the podium and having some top 5 as well. He has been very strong all season long, and now we come to the second half of the FIA Formula E season. He's going to be a contender for this championship. I wouldn't rule him out whatsoever.
And along with wins, consistency is, of course, a big factor in the grid ranking. But if we could pull the grid ranking back up here and take a look at who is tied for 10th right now, we know W Series just entered the grid ranking this year. And look who is tied for 10th, rather, with Chaz Mostert. It's Jamie Chadwick. Of course, she's 2 for 2 this season in the W Series. She'll be trying to make it 3 for 3 next weekend. And if she wins, it will be 5 W Series race wins in a row for her, dating back to last season. Of course, the other series in grid ranking have longer seasons. Most are not yet halfway through their respective years. But Adam, we'll go to you first this time. Do you think Jamie Chadwick might crack the top 10 if she wins and if Chaz Mostert has a bit of an off weekend?
Absolutely. She can crack the top 10. And I think she will crack the top 10 next weekend. The next time Supercars runs is at Winton Motor Raceway. And so if Chaz Mostert has a weekend like what we saw last time on at Wanneroo Raceway, yeah, Jamie Chadwick could crack the top 10. And I think Jamie Chadwick right now, she's in a league of her own in the W Series. Yeah, there's so many other great females in that series. But right now, you got to find a way to beat Jamie Chadwick to bring home the W Series title again this year.
Yes, Adam, and Jamie Chadwick is definitely the overall favorite to win the W Series championship again and become a 3-time champion. And I think there's a strong chance that she will be able to crack the top 10, as you mentioned. And see a question right there from a day in the life said, how many series are in the grid ranking? And it's been 7 in recent years, but with the addition of the W Series, we now have 8 series in the grid ranking. And if you want to learn more about the grid ranking, be sure to visit our website at gridranking.com and getting back to Jamie Chadwick. I agree, she's definitely in quite a league of her own. In the W Series, it's Jamie Chadwick versus everyone else. And if the W Series, which I believe is weighted differently than the other series in the grid ranking, I think Jamie Chadwick could, if it was weighted like the other series, I believe Chadwick could definitely move right up the grid ranking grid. But I definitely think she's going to obviously do awesome this weekend and next weekend in Spain and throughout the rest of the W Series season. I know Joe was, I believe it was Joe, and who was saying that maybe Jamie Chadwick could sweep every race so far this season. While I think that's going to be a really tall order and probably mostly impossible to win every single race all season, because it's hard to have everything, like 100% of everything go your way in motorsports. But I do think that she'll win the vast majority of the races. And if she doesn't win, because I could definitely see her racking up a whole bunch of podiums.
You got to get 2 before you can get 10, though. So there is that.
Yep, that's true, man. And be sure to follow the Grid Ranking on Twitter at _Grid Ranking and visit gridranking.com. This is the 8th year of the Grid Ranking. 4 racers have won it: Martin Truex Jr., Mark Marquez, Lewis Hamilton, and Sebastian Ogier. And now, with that being said, it's time for our Grid One Shining Moment from this motorsports weekend. So I'll start with you, Ben. What's your Grid One Shining Moment?
Well, Josh said what I was thinking with Colton Herta. So to avoid being repetitive, even though that was a great moment, I will go with Kurt Busch. And he has lived up to his own reputation of somebody that continues to make every team that he goes to just a little bit better than when he arrived there. 23XI, of course, are still a young team, still learning, still trying to build up their program. But we've seen this ever since Kurt got released from Penske and basically had to sacrifice a year of his career, with no disrespect to Phoenix Racing, certainly not a team that was able to give him a car worthy of winning races on a regular basis. That was a very tough year for Kurt. I think he learned a lot about himself. And then he went to Furniture Row Racing for a year. I think it's easy for a lot of people to forget that they associate that team with Martin Truex Jr., but didn't quite win a race, but had a lot of strong runs there. And then went to Stewart-Haas and their fourth car and kind of gave Gene Haas his own car within the Stewart-Haas race team. Had quite a bit of success there. Went to Chip Ganassi's team and did the same thing. He's kind of been known for winning one race every year. I've got to think he might pick up a couple of wins this year. He got his one race out of the way so early in the season that I think it certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't put it past him to win another race this year. But look at what he's done now with 2311, a team that had only won one race before he got there. Now they have two with one with each of their cars. So I think Kurt has certainly lived up to that reputation. He did a great job today, and I've got to make him my one shining moment. It's great for the 45 team and for 2311 as a whole. I think it's a big confidence boost, like I said earlier in the show.
And my great one shining moment goes to all of the people down in Australia for bringing back the Bathurst 12-hour this year. And I will admit that the Bathurst 12-hour this year it did not feel the same in my opinion, but it's better than nothing, right? I mean, the last time we saw the Bathurst 12-hour was 2020, right before the global pandemic hit, and they decided not to do it last year at all, and they decided to bring it back this year with a lot of local teams and drivers and a few international drivers. But next year, when it returns to its traditional date in February 2023, it already seems like there's a lot of interest for a lot of factory drivers from around the world, a lot more factory support, and a lot of big names in GT3 racing from around the world plan to come back to Mount Panorama next year. So really excited to see the Bathurst one. I said that yesterday. Bathurst 12-hour. That's what I meant. It's easy to confuse the Bathurst 12-hour and 1000. And David says your one shining moment is Simon Pagenaud going from 20th to 2nd. Was a terrific job. Yes, that was an absolutely remarkable performance by Simon Pagenaud, going from deep in the field all the way up to finish on the podium in IndyCar and get him back to my one shining moment. So I definitely want to give kudos to all of the locals in Australia for putting on the best show possible given the current situation.
Kobe, you took my great one shining moment. I didn't realize you were going there, but I guess I'll go with Josh and I'll say Colton Herta, what he did. It was truly remarkable. That save he did yesterday was it was remarkable. It was just awesome. I'm surprised he didn't spin out. And I'll echo what you said, Kobe. I enjoyed watching the Bathurst 12-hour as well. Kudos to everyone down under in Australia. I'm happy to see. I was also happy to see the race return, and I can't wait till next year when it returns in February. I know that a lot of my friends in Australia and New Zealand know that I'll be watching here on my computer all 12 hours.
Yeah, Adam, and all of those teams and drivers. It was much harder this year to put on the Bathurst hour. As I mentioned, given all the circumstances, only a 20-car grid this year, which is a really small grid compared to what they've seen, and also the quality of talent throughout the grid took a big hit as well. But next year, expecting a lot of the heavy hitters we typically see in GT racing. I think they'll return to the mountain, and the international fanfare that this event has become will be even bigger next year when we get, I guess, closer to full normalcy with this Bathurst 12-hour. And with that said, we're out of time for tonight, so please be sure to like and subscribe to Grit Network here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Please consider joining our Patreon. Take 5 minutes after the show, look at that page, and invest in the Grit Network to keep us on the air well into the future. Click the link to buy me a coffee in the video description below, and you can buy a drink for your favorite on-air talent here at Grit Network. We appreciate Edward Hunter from Formula E Zone, Amber, and Zachary for buying us one. Any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet. Visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link and referral code below will give you $5 to invest right away. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. And that referral code is GridNet. And looking at the schedule for the next week or so, tomorrow, be sure to watch Brandon Crossan and Ben on Grid Live Encore to recap trucks, ARCA, and Indy Lights. Then Tuesday through Friday, Grid Tonight, we're going to be on the air each night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, recapping each day of Indianapolis 500 practice. Really looking forward to doing that once again for now, the third consecutive year. For Ben Snyder, Adam Limerice, and Joshua Burch, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you along the way, and have a wonderful week.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.